Okay, let's start with Q&A. Anybody have any questions over what has happened so far in the day and a half? No? Okay, I have a written question here. And the question goes like this. Would like to hear any theory or analogy on helping to cope with decision fatigue and burnout. So, decision fatigue and burnout. What I conjure in my mind straight away is this crumpled mind that you've all experienced when you came in on Friday night, which I presume by now is a lot more fluffy and energized. So already you can kind of tell what a burnout or fatigue feels like versus what a healthy mind feels like. Quite obvious, I think, in the feeling of it. Once you turn your attention inwards, you can feel how the mind actually is. So then question, what is a fatigue, or what is mental fatigue, what is a burnout? I suppose an easy explanation is to say a brain or a mind that's been squeezed too hard and squeezed too long and never had a chance to refill. So not much more need to be said. Question then is, how do you overcome it? Overcome it by giving attention to the mind and to rest it, refill it with loving kindness, refill it with joy. Ajahn Brahm used to say this, and the first time I heard it, I was a bit bewildered. He says, what is happiness and what is depression? And in his explanation, it's so simple. It's just how much energy you have in your heart. If your heart is full of energy, it's bright, it's happy. If it's totally depleted, then it's flat and it's depressed. It's so simple. That was Ajahn Brahm's view. Of course, we have to work, and when we work, we have to make decisions, and when we make or not just work, just to live, you have to make decisions. And then you see how Ajahn Brahm and some of the other teachers work quite hard and don't seem to burn out. And then there are some other people who have simple jobs, don't have to figure out so many things, but looks or appears depleted anyhow. And then you wonder whether the depletion comes from the job or just comes from bad mental habits. What you have experienced during this weekend is that when you think happy thoughts, when you sense joy, when you sense kindness, even though the mind is working, it's filling up. On the other hand, when you're saying, why is the other person like this? Why is that person like this? How come why did he say that? I don't like this. The mind is doing the same amount of work, but the energy level drops. So the mental habit makes a difference. Okay, more practically, what is mental habit? The Buddha says this, yoniso manasikara, to pay attention to the right things and not to the wrong things. If we are fault-finding, this is against classical Ajahn Brahm teaching, if you have a fault-finding mind, of course you will deplete your energy, you will become depressed, you burn out, you have fatigue. if you focus on positive things, if you rejoice in the work that you do, of course you will feel happy, and when you sit down, you don't actually feel all too tired. But if you hate the simple job, okay, can you please just sweep the driveway? I hate the sweeping, I hate the sweeping. At the end of it, it's not a very mentally taxing job, but the hating of it taxes the mind. So the way you look at life, the way you perceive the world affects how you use your mental energy. Perhaps I can add a little diversion. I was talking to some people a few days ago about a study which I read, a big study in America called the Adverse Childhood Experience, ACE. This Adverse Childhood Experience study was done by a medical insurance company. Initially, they did a small study on something else, on obesity, and then on 200 people, and then discovered a bit of truth and understanding inside. But then he published his results, and people shot him down and said, "You're gullible. 200 people on obesity, you can't conclude anything. Those guys just don't have the discipline to lose weight." So he went back to his bosses, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, teamed up with him, went back to the insurance company's bosses and said, "Can we do a much bigger study, 100 times bigger? Can we do 20,000 people?" And the bosses said, "Yeah, fine, go ahead. For the next 20,000 people, it turns out to be 22,000 people, you can ask new policy holders if they want to participate in your study." And out of the next consecutive 22,000, 17,000 signed up and said, "Okay, we'll join your study." I don't think there was any offer of discount or anything like that, but they joined the study. What was the study? So when you sign up for medical insurance, you have to fill up this long form proposal, name, age, job, whatever. And then you have to describe pre-existing conditions, hypertension, diabetes, or migraines, or whatever. You fill up all that section. And then lifestyle. How many drinks do you have per week? Do you smoke? How many packs of cigarettes do you smoke? And they may ask you other things like marital status, number of kids, number of grandchildren, where you stay, whether you participate in any dangerous sports, skydiving, motorbike racing, or scuba diving. I think those are some of the standard ones. But for these 17,000 participants, they added a section at the bottom. What was your childhood like? Were your parents separated during your early years? Was there drug abuse at home? Was there domestic violence at home? Was there depression at home? And then it goes on to ask, did you feel neglected at any point in your childhood? Did you feel abused at any point in your childhood? Whether physically or sexually, or emotionally? Did you feel unsafe at any point in your childhood? And then after 2 years, they gathered these 17,000 forms, ran it through the computer to see this last section. How many boxes did they take out of 10 categories? And all those 10 categories, apparently only about a third had a clear slate. No separation, no abuses, no violence. The other 2/3 had some amount of trouble, and quite often you won't find one tick. Apparently the number of one tick is like 10% or 15% of the total 17,000. The cases that weren't clean slate generally had several ticks. Then they went on to say, okay, compare this box with all the other inputs at the top. And it says those with a clean slate generally are happily married, don't smoke, don't drink, don't have too many pre-existing conditions, they are just generally healthier. And then those with many ticks in the boxes at the bottom will probably be in their second or third marriage, will probably be smoking or drinking quite a fair bit, will probably be having a few pre-existing conditions. The heart condition, the diabetes, the migraines, the eczemas. And it's like, and of course, sorry, I didn't mention also the mental health part, depressions, suicidal thoughts, self-harming, or eating disorders. And it turns out the impact of those ticks in the bottom on all these other things on top is not like 10% difference or 20% difference as you might expect. It's like huge, 2 times, 3 times difference kind of thing, 200% difference kind of thing. It's strange why we still don't hear about this very much, but I encourage you to go and look it up because it's very eye-opening. For me, it was very eye-opening. I was wondering why educationists don't talk about this, why parenting classes don't talk about this. And the hypothesis was, one of the doctors gave this TED talk, Nadine Burke, I think her name, and she says, most of the time we think, well, all these broken families, they're on the other side of the town, the other side of the railway line. That's the broken home people, they're not us. But then she says, excuse me, these are the guys who can afford medical insurance. 70% of them are graduates. Majority of them are white. They are not broken home. They are us. They are like they are a representative cut of our society. And that was scary. And so it's like for many people who are part of those tick boxes, whether they're the parents or the kids, I don't want to look at this data. And that's why she thinks we're not talking about it. But it's serious because what happens in those early 15 years, especially those early 8 years or 5 years, affects how you think. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you didn't feel safe, if you felt neglected, you go to school, the teacher's trying to teach you maths or geography or something, and your head is in a different place. You're churning and churning and churning and churning what happened this morning at home. So when you come to adulthood and you are saying, okay, can you please sweep the driveway? You're still churning and churning and churning. Why did you ask me to sweep the driveway? Why can't I ask somebody else to sweep the driveway? The same thought patterns are there. So this idea of burnout, this idea of depression, fatigue, I raise this because the solution requires this awareness, I think. In the Buddha's teaching, of course, it says, develop the kind heart, develop the non-fault-finding mind, learn to see other people's experience of joy and bliss. That says, if you have this joy and bliss, you don't have to compare, I'm equal to him, I'm slightly better than him, I'm worse than him, he thinks he's arrogant, he's such a... All those comparing mind comes from childhood, when parents do this to the kids. Cautionary note, don't blame your parents because they also went through a similar process. They probably had their burnouts caused by their childhood, caused by grandparents who also got burnt out, no time to attend to their kids because they had to serve in World War II and go through all the other troubles. So we are here in Jhana Grove, having seen firsthand what the mental processes do to our moods and to our hearts, to our mental energy, to our peace and happiness. Understanding that from an experiential point, then you can go and look back at the rest of your life and says, what there messes up this? What there supports this? And you look at it long enough, you realize, actually, the Buddha just gave us all the answers. In the Eightfold Path, it's in all the instructions. Be kind, be gentle. Make peace. The answers have been given, it's just that we didn't know what the question was. Make sense? Any questions? Any comments? Is there a mic? No need? Okay, go ahead. No mic, go ahead.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, mic coming.
Thank you. It gives us hope after hearing the study and your explanation about the Buddha's teaching. So I can relate to some extent, actually. Maybe I belong to the category that ticks many boxes. But somehow, at some point in time, my friend took me to the first Buddhist temple. And when I read Buddha's message, I just felt, wow, how come no one taught this at school? And I found this is most important. It's more important than anything else, like the math, like the science, like the formula we learned. And then ever since then, we started on a journey. So from listening to Dharma talk and then gradually trying this and then trying this, trying that. It's a sort of like a exploration. And then without knowing, it's just in hindsight, we found one little step and then took us to the next step, then open up a bigger picture. And then everything started to join together. The life, the view of the world, the view on life, the view on everything else, just like made a shift. And it's like miraculous. So even though we may have experienced something difficult or even disgusting, adverse, which may have disheartened us or hurt us, but I just want to say, Buddha's teaching is like the medicine. It does work. And sometimes I feel Ajahn Brahmi is like the Buddha in BSWA, and he can be very busy, but like you and the other venerables, they are like Ananda or Sariputta who can explain the concept to us. So we can benefit a lot from your sharing as well. So thank you very much, Venerable Radha.
Any other comments? Okay, in that case, I'll give you a bit more. Yes, Prem.
inspiration. Did we touch on inspiration, the impact of the inspiration to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha on the virtuous practices and everything actually? I mean, even this abuse and how to overcome those and all that, how to accept the Dhamma, accept everything that you have been teaching. How much of a role does the inspiration have? Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, so you would have heard from last night's talk that we had a bit of excitement in this room. People experienced bliss. And that gave me a bit of reflection as well. Very honestly, I thought I was teaching a beginner's meditation class. You guys are pushing my limits. So went back last night, reflected. So I'll try and explain back to you what I kind of reflected on. So we'll start at the very end. At the very end, yesterday, one of us sat down, having switched off the hands and legs, having switched off the other sensations in the body, got the mind and the breath and a lot of kindness to sit together in a little cave, isolated from the rest of the world. And eventually, in that little cave, the amount of happiness just bubbled over and boiled over to the extent somebody would ask the question, can my heart actually contain this kind of bliss? Very hard to picture that in the real world because the rest of us, we've not experienced that kind of bliss. But to try and explain, I'll try and use an analogy that we've all experienced. If I took off this microphone and stuck it to that speaker, what would happen? Feedback, and it'll start howling and screeching, right? And then you'll hear this terrible, excruciating sound, and you can't hear anything else, right? For that to happen, it takes two things. One, the amplifier must be such that it's loud enough. Two, the microphone must be near enough. And when that happens, what happens is that a little sound, tap, 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 the sound goes into the microphone, goes through the amplifier, comes back out through the speaker. If the sound that comes out was louder than the first tap, then it will go through the amplifier again, come out even louder, go through the microphone, through the amplifier, come out again even louder, and then you hear that howling, screeching sound. And it will take over everything you hear, you won't hear anything else. The mind has no choice but to hear that screeching sound. But if I pull the microphone away, or if I turn the volume down, the screeching will stop. And that's the voice you hear now. I'm speaking to this, the sound goes through this, goes through the amplifier, comes out the speakers, you hear it, but it's not loud enough to create that howling feedback, right? And that's how it is for most of us. When we sit down and we try and cultivate some joy and happiness in the heart, but it doesn't get past that threshold into self-sustaining, self-amplifying. What is required for that? The way Ajahn Brahm explains it, at that point, you have removed all the other distractions. The mind is just looking at itself. The microphone is just pointing at the speaker and nothing else. If you point it at the speaker and then you move it away, it will screech for a bit and then stop. Point it and then move it away and screech for a bit. And most of the time, we don't even hold the microphone close enough for it to start screeching. Second thing, the volume needs to be turned up enough such that it amplifies. So the heart needs to be sensitive enough to the joy to be joyful about that joy. So you're feeling joy, you're getting more happy, you're happy that you're more happy, and you're happy that you're happy that you're happy, and it keeps amplifying. If you're not looking for joy, but if you're looking for faults and criticisms, and you're looking for things that are wrong with the world, you won't be amplifying that joy. That's one. Two, if your microphone keeps shifting around and not picking up joy, then there's no chance for it to amplify joy and only joy. So if our mind is distracted, which is what most of us feel when we sit down and meditate, we say, okay, joy in the breath. And then you feel, oh, I need to shift my bum. Oh, okay, joy in the breath. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And then, all right, joy in the breath again. What's for lunch, by the way? So you never get to picking up enough joy to amplify it. What happened yesterday at 4 p.m. in that little experiment, we switched off a lot of the bodily sensation so that there's not much else to find fault on. There's just you and the breath, the mind and the breath. And after a full day, several sessions, your mind has learned to appreciate joy in the breath. Breath, joy, joy, breath. And then when you sit with the breath, joy. The association has started to take place. And in May's case, she managed to stay on it a lot. I will assure you it's not fluke. She has done a lot of work. So don't think it's unfair that, how come she... yeah, so take a few steps back. Then the Buddha says, Brahma Vihara, I mentioned this briefly, I'm not sure if it went down. There are these 4 states where you have metta, universal, loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, rejoicing in other people's success, and upekkha, to be unperturbed by all the stuff outside. This forms the proximate cause for that joy to happen. If you're somewhere here, you're very close to joy, you're in joy, close enough to be considered in that state. Amplify any of this and you will get your excruciating joy. Then if you think, okay, still a bit difficult, then next step behind that are all the good mind states that you can think of: gratitude, humility, being respectful, being gentle. And to have that, one step behind that again, is to have a good perception, a favorable perception of the world and yourself. If, for example, you had many ticks in those boxes, you would probably judge yourself harshly, and you will judge the world harshly. And at that time, somebody suggests to you, how about having some gratitude for lunch? This is cold food, you want me to have gratitude for cold food? And that's not salty enough. They stinge on even the salt. Can you beat that? If you have that complaining mind, it's hard. But if on the other hand, you have done voluntary work, you have served the community around you, you have taken care of your parents, you are kind and supportive to your family, you can come away knowing, yes, I'm a good person. Despite whatever the history, despite however many boxes were ticked when you were young. And therefore, right at the beginning of the Buddhist path, the Buddha says, listen to the teachings if you subscribe to it. Try the 5 precepts. Cleans up the mess from before. Don't carry the cross. After you have taken the 5 precepts, more teachings will come, like what we are discussing here now. And you experience for yourself, actually, seeing the world in a good space, seeing that I'm in a good space, doing good things, refraining from all the disturbing stuff, puts me in a happy space. My mind can actually sit down and be happy just like that. No need to buy a new phone, no need to buy a new car, no need to find a new partner, no need to find anything. Just sit and you're happy. So simple and so hard. Okay, so any comments, questions?
Thank you.
So with that, we're at 9 o'clock now. Does anybody want to use the toilet, stretch, or anything like that? Or shall we go straight into the meditation? While we're waiting for them, I was thinking to myself just now, you know, one of the things about burnouts and fatigue, I was looking at my cousin in Singapore. She runs a business, and so she's very busy. A staff of 30, 40 people to look after, employees to look after. She runs the business as a proprietor. And then at the end of a hard, tough day, she'd come back to relax. And how does she relax? She turns on her phone, looks at YouTube, looks at TikTok. And you wonder if that's a good way to recharge the mind. Somehow that's the prevailing view for a lot of young people, even old people. My cousin's almost as old as I. And when I thought of that thought, right, I thought, this is quite ironic, because as I say this, I'm being filmed and this thing is being uploaded onto YouTube, and somebody's going to spend time watching it. So so now that you're all sensitized to what the mind does, how the mind behaves, and how the mind reacts to what we do with it, and perhaps we will be a bit more careful taking care of the mind, how we use it. It just so happens it's the nature of this mind, nature of this Dhamma, that the realization of all these things is on the other side. After you've had one of these experiences, then you realize, what's the whole point of complaining? What's the whole point of comparing? When there's just this happiness and joy that does not require the comparing and the fault finding. But until then, it's very hard to break the habit. It's just, in the end, I think the way the Buddha put it was, it depends on how much faith you have in his teachings, that you believe he actually saw this and tells it the way he saw it in a way that works for the rest of us. And if you did, like me here, having that, yes, every piece of jigsaw I discover, it looks prettier than the previous piece and it fits in, and the picture is consistent, it looks good, it makes sense. Then you look for another piece of the jigsaw to fit in. That makes it look even more complete. And now I understand this a little bit about speech. This is forming a picture about the mind. This little bit here is forming a picture about what happiness is all about. And as you form this picture, right view comes to you. As the picture becomes clearer, stillness and happiness comes to you. And then when you get one of these things, or several of these things, suddenly you're on the other side looking at the whole picture with total clarity. And then all this suffering ceases. So, okay, let's start to sit. As you're sitting there, I'll clarify again. As I was saying, first thing, I'm at a conundrum because I realize many of you are advanced meditators, more advanced than I, and some of you are not, just like me. And in my interaction with the guys at Carnet Prison, I know that it's helpful for somebody like me to keep interjecting every now and again, just to add a bit more joy, bring the mind back, add a bit more joy, bring the mind back. But I can also understand how that might disturb the peace of some of you. Which was why this morning when we sat at 5 o'clock or 5:30, I kind of kept my talking to the minimum. I kind of realized most who came at 5:30 just wanted the quiet. But please forgive me for this particular session if I talk too much. Please zone out if it suits you. You can even walk out of this session if you like, and I won't feel offended. I'll be very pleased that you are enjoying the meditation. So as you're sitting there, make yourself totally at peace, totally relaxed. Remembering that one of the proximate cause for that joy to happen is when you're not distracted. And some of the distraction comes from this body. So the more peaceful this body is, the less demanding it is, the less the mind is pulled away from joy. as you scan your body for any discomforts. As you now know, make peace, not war. Allow your body to be totally comfortable. Remembering again the breath. Is very good at soothing any aches or tension. And as the mind pays attention to those discomforts, and as the mind works with the breath, there's this cooperation that starts happening, the partnership between the mind and the breath. That is totally based on goodwill. And to make it even more comfortable, check again if there's tightness around the abdominal area. You can relax all the muscles here. Allowing the diaphragm free movement. To let the breath flow unimpeded. And then extend this area of relaxation upwards. making peace with any aches and pains, being kind and gentle. And if you can sense that the breath is now moving very smoothly in and out, take joy in that sensation. It's like a free credit you can claim straight away. And you can claim that credit with every breath. Every time it feels good, it's a reward. The attention further up and relax the neck, the face, the head, the brain. Spread the kindness. Joy. And as the body becomes more relaxed and totally comfortable, you can try that trick again. Feeling the hands resting on your thigh or on the armrest. And if they're comfortable enough, you can switch off the motor nerves. You can still feel your hands, they're still there. Happily resting. And then now, feeling the legs, making sure they're totally relaxed and comfortable. Knowing that they're safe. You can switch them off too. And with the limbs now at rest, we're only left with the breath and the mind at play. It's like this whole space is ours. You might imagine the breath running circles around the mind, sprinkling stardust, making the mind happy. At any time that you feel a dullness set in, you lose focus or something like that, reach out, catch the breath, and play with the breath. So, as a guideline, if the mind is very, very peaceful, then it'll probably be happy for a really gentle breath. Faintly sliding in and out. If this is you, you can ignore me for the rest of this sit and just enjoy. If on the other hand, if the mind is not yet so sensitive, then perhaps it wants to chew on something more substantial, which is why I would suggest playing with a happy breath, like two playmates in a pen. So long as they hang out together, eventually they'll settle down. you can make the breath feel as big as necessary to catch the mind's attention. And if you feed it with a lot of sweets, happiness, the mind will pay attention. One little hack that you might try is to actually have a smile. For you to smile at the breath. And then watch the goodwill come back. As I was mentioning earlier, there are two parts. One, that you perceive joy, you perceive happiness. And the other part is that you're actually sensitive to it and you amplify it. If the heart is soft, it will appreciate the happiness. The happiness gets bigger and will appreciate it even more. if you have been trying very hard and you find that you're getting nowhere, perhaps the trying very hard is the problem. Instead, you might try the after lunch meditation. Just let the mind rest floating on top of the breath. Being cradled by the breath. Instead of the mind having to work, it's refill time. The mind can totally let go and just relax.